A little bit about the 20 rep squat program. It is a program that tries to turn your 5 rep max into a 20 rep max by the end of the program. So it's 6 weeks, 3 times a week. You start off very submaximal, doing one set of 20 reps 3 times a week, building yourself all the way up to where your 5 rep max used to be. So my 5 rep max conservatively is about 240. I haven't squatted in 3 or 4 months, so I'm being very conservative there. By the end of this program, I should be doing 240 for about 20 reps. Hopefully, as long as we can keep on pace. So we got a little warm up sets going on here before we do the one set of 20 reps, and then also in this video we're going to talk a little bit about the assistance work. I'm doing a lot of eccentric lengthening exercises for my assistance work. Reason being, my flexibility isn't that good. Eccentric lengthening is a great way to build flexibility and strength at the same time. So after this 20 rep squat, we'll get into a little bit of those eccentric lengthening exercises and talk about why they're effective. Funny thing here is I only did 18 reps because I can't count to 20, so I had to go back and do the other 2. If you're doing the 20 rep squat program, I guess a prerequisite would be that you have to be able to count to 20. I didn't know that before I started, but I'm learning. By the end of it, I should be able to count to 20. We'll see. Alright, first one here, we have a straight leg deadlift using a kettlebell. Now, we're working the hamstrings and we're stretching the hamstrings at the same time. When a muscle contracts eccentrically, it is essentially lengthening and contracting at the same time. Now, the brain gets feedback based upon both of those activities as they're occurring, and from the muscle sensory nerves, and it's saying, okay, you know what, this muscle is stretching, but it's also contracting, so it's in use. Then the idea there is the eccentric lengthening exercises give you functional strength. It gives you increased range of motion, but with contraction in that increased range of motion, resulting in an increased functional strength within that range of motion. Hopefully that's definitely a mouthful, but essentially is you get increased muscle extensibility and increased strength within that new range that you just gained. So key points here is we're keeping the back flat. I usually stand on an elevated surface so that the kettlebell doesn't hit the floor before I get a stretch of the hamstrings. If you have tight hamstrings like me, I mean, this is a great option. The only downfall I would say is that both of the legs are in the same plane, so you kind of, whereas if you were doing a split or something, you would be getting counter rotation of the pelvis. With this, everything's moving in unison, so you're not going to get a maximal functional stretch of the hamstring, but for someone who's has tight muscles, this is a great alternative. It also makes a pretty good prerequisite to the good morning exercise. If you have a beginner that isn't quite getting the hip hinge down of the good morning, or maybe doesn't understand the concept of keeping a neutral spine, you can start them here and then eventually progress them to a good morning. So over these 6 weeks, as I'm doing the 20 rep squat program, at least for lower body, I will be doing a lot of this eccentric lengthening work. I can tell you already, I can touch my toes, if not go further. Previously, I could never touch my toes. My hamstrings were that tight. It's definitely a little uncomfortable. We're switching gears, getting a little work outside. This did not last long because it started to downpour, but we got about one set in. We're doing a cross hack squat here. Great for hip, quad strength, and again, eccentric lengthening of the adductors. With a disclaimer, as long as you keep your foot flat. Some people do this exercise and they rotate the hip so that the toe is pointing up and they kind of spin on their heel. If you do that, then you're going to hit the hamstrings a bit more, less of the adductors. So I already did my hamstrings. I want to bias the adductors. I'm trying to keep my foot glued flat to the floor as I'm doing this exercise. This is a pretty great exercise both for increasing range of motion and strength, because you'll feel it in the glutes and it hits your quad pretty good as well. Another benefit of it, it's full body with the kettlebell. Now we're going to another eccentric lengthening exercise, but this time the rectus femoris and the quads. So the rectus femoris primarily is lengthening here and contracting as we go back. The key points here are to keep the stomach tight and make sure your back doesn't arch. To get more length, the people have a tendency to tilt their pelvis forward, which is where the rectus femoris attaches, and that's a quad muscle for some people who don't know. And when your pelvis tilts forward, you're giving the rectus femoris a little bit more slack. We don't want to do that because we want to stretch it. So the way to combat that is to keep the abdomen nice and tight as you're going back. Now, this is the point where it downpoured, so we had no choice but to come inside. So we're back in the dungeon gym basement, and we're hitting the cross hack squats again. This is just a great exercise all around. I started doing it probably a few months ago. It takes a lot of coordination, and you get a little upper body work. You get some core work. You're really working the lower body. You just good bang for your buck. I'm hitting about 3 sets of 5 total here, and I'll eventually progress up to about 3 sets of 10 before I increase the weight and then go back down to 3 sets of 5. This is kind of a bit of cardio, in my realm anyway, because my cardio is crap. Doing 10 reps of this, I'm huffing and puffing a little bit afterwards. And we're back to the rectus femoris eccentric lengthening. So really, I mean, I'm kind of hammering home here, just increasing my muscle length. Now, the reality is muscle length doesn't really increase, but it does condition the nervous system to allow the muscle to stretch more without triggering a response that there's an inherent danger from the muscle stretching. A lot of people's muscles are long enough to be stretched completely in all different directions, but it's the nervous system that prevents the muscle from stretching in fear that it might tear. So we just have to condition the body gradually over time and let the nervous system know that, hello, I want this range of motion. I want to be strong in this range of motion. Allow this muscle to stretch. so that I can utilize this range of motion for whatever I may be doing. I mean, it could be as simple as bending down and touching your toes, bending down and getting something to the ground. It could be, you know, if you're working your adductors like this, if you're a martial artist and you need to lengthen your adductors so you can throw kicks, you know, it could be along those lines as well. Yeah. And I can see myself getting fatigued here. And that's probably more of a cardiovascular muscle endurance problem. But I'm just getting back into gear. Finally on a structured routine again after it being a while. So over the next coming weeks, it should snap back into shape. Puff and puff. And we're back to the eccentric lengthening of the rectus femoris. Now the one thing I could change here is my head's flexing forward. That's making it a little bit easier on me. If I keep my head in a more neutral position, it would make it much harder. And I would probably recommend that people progress to doing that and having their head in a more neutral position over time. Is this bad for your neck? Some people are going to say, oh, this is bad for you. This is not going to be bad for your neck. You're just working the muscles on the front side of your neck. They'll be fine. You're not going to end up getting a herniated disc in your neck. Now, if you were using weight with this exercise, what you could do, then it might be a little bit of a different story. But without weight, it's not that big of a deal. And last rep before we collapse. One more. We're going for it. We're going for it. Get it done. And it was a struggle. And that's it. Mission completed. Day 2 of the 20 rep squat program down. Thank you for watching. My videos will get better and not be as obnoxiously amateur. But please like, share, and subscribe.